Hey everyone, thought I'd take a couple minutes here to do another short tutorial screencast. This one has to do with the spot healing abilities in Lightroom 5, Lightroom 5 specifically, because there was some new functionality that came out with Lightroom 5 that wasn't in 4 that I'll be covering with this little screencast. And for those of you who do a lot of outdoor shooting, maybe shooting environments that aren't always the friendliest, you've got dust on your sensor over the years, and dust shows up in images as little spots, typically in the sky, somewhere where there isn't a lot of detail otherwise, and you'll really start noticing it when you get up to higher f-stops or conversely lower aperture. It's the higher the f number, the smaller the aperture in your lenses. And when you get into the f16, f22, places like that, dust spots really will show up on your images if you have dust on your sensor. This image that you're looking at on my screen is a perfect example of that. It was shot at f16 from a really nice view up here near our house. And if you notice here over around where my mouse is, you see some really obvious dust spots, these little black spots. I hope they show up in the screencast, but if not, here, I'm going to zoom in on them, and you should really be able to see them now. You can see right here where my mouse is. There's just a lot of little specks there on my on the image on my sensor. So the easiest way to correct those in Lightroom is you go to the Develop module, and for many versions now, this little spot tool has existed. It's not new, but what is new in Lightroom, and I guess before I go for, you can change its size and everything just like any other tools. The bracket arrows will move your size up and down. What's new in Lightroom is this visualize spots option down here. When I click on that, it's going to render a black and white version of the image. Not in what you'd expect to see in black and white, but it shows edge detail. And right now we're not seeing a whole lot of obvious spots, and that's with the kind of the default setting here roughly in the middle. If I drag this little slider way up, all of a sudden all of these little spots really start showing up, and I can go in without having to go back out to a visual setting and just start clicking on all of the little dust. And what Lightroom is doing is it's sampling the actual visible part of the image, but it's giving it to you in this interface that's much easier to be able to see. So as you go through, you spend some time, whatever amount of time it takes to go through and clean each of these little things up. I'm not going to take the amount of time that it would take to do the whole image, but there's a couple over here as well. And you'll notice each one of these that I click, Lightroom is actually deciding where it's sampling from. Sometimes it's very close, sometimes it's a long ways away. It just sort of depends on the actual pixels that are there in the visible element of it. So I've gone through, done a pretty good number of these, and now when I turn visualize spots back off, it's going to take me back to a visible view of it. I still have all my little bubbles here since I'm still in the spot edit tool, but then when I go ahead and close that, all of those go away. It takes me back to the image. Now if I go back to my library, I can zoom in on this section of the image. It's going to rebuild my previews simply because I did make changes in the Develop module. So while it's building these previews, and it's a little slower, I do have it build large previews. You'll notice now as I scroll around this section of the image, it's pretty clean. It did a really good job of cleaning up this entire section of the frame, makes it a much more usable image. So if you're not using Lightroom 5 and you are doing a lot of work and trying to clone out or clean spots, maybe it's time to think about an upgrade. It is an awesome feature in Lightroom 5, and I hope this has been helpful, and we will talk to you again soon.